From players sabotaging each other mid-round, to heated on-course incidents that ended friendships and careers. These are the ugliest zero sportsmanship moments in golf history. And first we start with this one. Every golfer has had a bad day on the greens, but at the 2015 US Open, Billy Horschel made sure the whole world knew just how bad his was. Chambers Bay was already under fire. The course was controversial. The greens, even more so. Patchy, bumpy, unpredictable. Players were grumbling behind closed doors all week. But Horschel, he brought it right out into the open. During the final round, he let his frustration fly, slamming his putter into the turf, throwing tantrums, and visibly mocking the surfaces after nearly every missed putt. Cameras caught everything. The muttering, the eye rolls, the dramatic reactions after every roll that didn't go his way. And then came the quote that sent shockwaves through the USGA. He told reporters he had lost respect for the organization. Straight up said it. It was raw, it was honest. But it was also a direct shot at the people running one of the most prestigious tournaments in golf. Yes, he later apologized for his on-course behavior, but he doubled down on his criticism of the greens. Was he right about the conditions? Maybe. But when you start publicly trashing the setup, slamming your equipment, and turning the final round of a major into a one-man protest, that's not passion. That's crossing the line. Chambers Bay had problems, but Billy Horschel's sportsmanship might have been bumpier than the greens. All right, next one. Sometimes in golf, tempers boil quietly under the surface. Other times, they walk right off the green for everyone to see. During the final round of the 2005 Booz Allen Classic, Rory Sabatini found himself paired with Ben Crane, a player well known for his, let's say, deliberate pace of play. Shot after shot, hole after hole, Sabatini's patience began to unravel as Crane took what felt like an eternity to pull the trigger on every shot. Then came the 17th green. After holing his putt, Sabatini did something no one saw coming. He didn't wait for his partner. He didn't offer a glance, a nod, or a word. Instead, he picked up his bag and stormed off to the 18th tee, leaving Crane standing alone, still mid-hole with the cameras rolling and the gallery watching. It wasn't a protest, it wasn't subtle. It was a deliberate public show of disrespect, an unspoken message that said, "I'm done with this." The backlash was immediate. Critics slammed Sabatini for being disrespectful and unsportsmanlike, calling his actions petty and unprofessional. He eventually apologized, but it was one of those moments that stuck with him for years. Sure, slow play is annoying, but ditching your playing partner on national TV, that's when sportsmanship disappears completely. Number 15 brings us to the 2008 Zurich Classic, a tournament that should have been remembered for birdies and scorecards. But instead, it's remembered for one of the most awkward on-course feuds in recent memory. Bubba Watson was paired with veteran Steve Elkington, and from early on, it was clear. This pairing wasn't clicking. Tensions simmered throughout the round, and by the back nine, they weren't simmering anymore. They were boiling. Caught on a hot mic, Bubba made his feelings crystal clear. "Steve can kiss my No sugarcoating, no filters, just raw, uncensored frustration broadcast for everyone to hear. But the worst moment came after the final putt dropped. As the group walked off the 18th green, Bubba made a point of skipping Elkington in the handshake line. No handshake, no eye contact, just a cold shoulder on live television. Fans were stunned. Commentators didn't know what to say. Even Elkington, who'd been around the block, looked caught off guard. Bubba later apologized, admitting he let his temper get the best of him, but by then, the clip had already gone viral. And the message was loud and clear, coming in at number 14 for one of the most savage mic drop moments in golf history, where the trash talk didn't come during the match, but before it even started. Ahead of their first round showdown at the 2006 WGC Match Play, Stephen Ames was asked about his chances against Tiger Woods. His response? Anything can happen, especially where he's hitting the ball. Translation? Tiger's beatable. Big mistake. Tiger didn't respond with words. He responded with a golf club in his hand and fury in his eyes. From the first tee, it was an absolute slaughter. Tiger went birdie, 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 par, and Ames, he never stood a chance. Hole after hole, Tiger dismantled him, clinching the match 9-8. That's not just a win, that's public humiliation. But the real moment came after the match. As they approached each other for the post-round handshake, Ames offered a quick nod and stuck out his hand like nothing had happened, like he hadn't poked the bear 24 hours earlier. And Tiger, he gave him a handshake so cold, so robotic, it could have frozen the Arizona desert. no smile, no eye contact, just the deadliest death stare you've ever seen in golf. Now at number 13, let's talk about one of the most bizarre exits in professional golf, where a meltdown didn't just end a round, it ended with a vanishing act. In 2011 at the Australian Open, John Daly was having one of those days. Things unraveled fast. It started on the 10th hole, where he was hit with a 2-stroke penalty for playing the wrong ball out of a bunker. Not ideal, but manageable. Then came the 11th, water down the right. A tough tee shot, but Daly wasn't backing off. He pulled another ball, then another, and another. 6, maybe 7 balls in total, all of them swallowed by the hazard like the course was hungry for chaos. Eventually, he turned to his playing partners and said 2 words, "I'm off." No official withdrawal, no explanation to the crowd, no check-in with a marshal. He simply walked off the course mid-round and disappeared. Later, he tweeted, "When you run out of balls, you run out of balls." Sure, he claimed he shook hands and signed his card with an official, but the tournament director wasn't impressed. The fans weren't thrilled, and his fellow players, left standing in the fairway wondering what just happened. There's walking away from a bad hole, and then there's walking away from responsibility. Daly didn't just quit the round, he ghosted the game. Here we are at number 12. Team events in golf are supposed to be about unity. Win together, lose together, but after the 2018 Ryder Cup, one player made it clear he wasn't on the same page. The US had just been dismantled by Europe in Paris. The energy was flat, the pairings didn't click, and the team chemistry looked off. But while most players kept things behind closed doors, Patrick Reed took a blowtorch to it all, publicly. Just hours after the defeat, Reed gave an interview where he openly called out Captain Jim Furyk for his pairing decisions. He criticized being split from his usual partner, Jordan Spieth, and accused the team of using a buddy system to decide matchups. He claimed he was left out of decisions and suggested it was more about friendships than strategy. And he didn't stop there. He said he was blindsided, implied that Spieth didn't want to play with him, and made it sound like the US locker room was less of a team and more of a popularity contest. The comments exploded. Golf fans were stunned. Other players stayed silent, but the message was loud and clear. Patrick Reed had taken team business and turned it into a very public blame game. Passion is one thing, but throwing teammates under the bus after a loss? That's not leadership. That's ego. Number 11 takes us to one of the most emotional and controversial moments the Solheim Cup has ever seen. A moment so charged with tension and so void of sportsmanship, it left players in literal tears. It was 2015 in Germany. The US and Europe were locked in a tight battle, and the tension was sky high. On the 17th hole of a crucial 4-ball match, Allison Lee had a short putt to have the hole. She thought it had been conceded, so she picked it up and started walking off the green. But then Suzanne Pettersson stepped in. She said the putt hadn't been conceded, and because Lee had picked up her ball without finishing the hole, the Americans were hit with a loss on the spot. The reaction? Immediate chaos. The US players were furious. Captain Julie Inkster looked like she could explode. Michelle Wie stood there in disbelief. Allison Lee was in tears. Even some of the European players looked uncomfortable. Pettersson stood by her decision. At first, she insisted it was within the rules, and technically it was. But the backlash was overwhelming. Critics slammed it as cold, calculated, and the exact opposite of what the Solheim Cup was supposed to represent. Only later, after emotions had spilled over and the moment had gone viral, did Pettersson apologize. But by then, it was too late, because you can play by the rules and still have zero sportsmanship. All right, number 10. Picture this, 2024 President's Cup, Royal Montreal, and the energy is electric. You've got Tom Kim, the walking hype machine, paired with Sungjae Im. On the other side, Scottie Scheffler, world number 1, cool as a glacier, until he wasn't. It's the opening day, and Tom Kim is dialed in. They reach the 7th hole, and Kim drops an absurd 35-foot birdie bomb. He doesn't just celebrate, he explodes. We're talking double fist pumps, full volume, let's go, chest puffed out like he just won the whole thing. The crowd's eating it up. But Scottie, he was not amused. He calmly steps up, drains his own 30-footer like a boss, then turns to Kim and fires back with a rare bit of spice. What was that? But the tension didn't stop there. On the very next hole, Kim sank another long birdie and celebrated just as loudly. But instead of waiting for Scheffler to finish, Kim and Im walked straight to the 9th tee, leaving Scheffler on the green. Commentator Paul McGinley called it bordering on bad behavior, and U.S. assistant captain Kevin Kisner reportedly confronted the international team, calling it Bush League. Scheffler and Henley went on to win the match 3-2, but the incident left a mark. Because in match play, passion is expected but respect is required. And that day, Tom Kim's celebration crossed the line from spirited to unsportsmanlike. For number 9, let's go back to 2005, Jakarta, Indonesia, where one of golf's most respected veterans found himself at the center of a scandal that never quite faded. During the second round of the Indonesian Open, Colin Montgomery found his ball resting in a messy, waterlogged lie near the edge of a bunker on the 14th hole. He was preparing to take his stance when play was suspended due to weather. Like many players, he walked off the course. But what came next? That's where the questions began. When Monty returned the next morning, the ball was gone. Instead of calling in an official, he simply replaced it. But not where it originally lay. Instead, he dropped it in a much cleaner, drier spot that conveniently gave him an easier stance. He got up and down for par and kept right on playing. But later, a photograph surfaced, and it showed exactly what everyone feared. The original lie was significantly worse than the one Monty used. It didn't take long for the accusations to fly. Golf Monthly called him out. Video footage raised eyebrows. Fellow pros whispered. Still, Montgomery said nothing. No explanation, no defense, just silence. Eventually, he donated his tournament winnings to charity, an unspoken admission that maybe, just maybe, the drop wasn't as innocent as it seemed. For this next one, we're heading to the Ryder Cup, a tournament famous for its passion, pressure, and pride. But in 1991, things went from competitive to downright petty. And the stars of the drama, Seve Ballesteros and Paul Azinger. It all started with a seemingly harmless detail, the golf ball. In foursomes play, teammates alternate shots and must agree on which ball to use. But Ballesteros noticed something odd. Every time it was Team USA's turn to tee off, Azinger and his partner Chip Beck would quietly switch to a different ball, one that suited the shot better. That's against the rules. You pick one ball, and that's what you use for the whole round. Ballesteros didn't let it slide. He called them out mid-round, right there on the course, but Azinger denied it. Things got tense, voices raised, eyes rolled, and just like that, the match became personal. From that moment on, the gamesmanship hit another gear. Ballesteros and his partner Jose Maria Olazabal started coughing during American swings, clearing throats, walking ahead of shots, little things that weren't technically illegal, but were clearly meant to rattle Azinger's cage. And it worked. The Americans were furious. The Europeans were defiant. The whole match dissolved into a petty back and forth of rule-bending, mind games, and thinly veiled insults. By the end, it wasn't just a golf match anymore, it was a grudge match. When grown men start beefing over a golf ball, you know sportsmanship has officially left the building. Now, number 7. Not every display of zero sportsmanship comes from the players. Sometimes it's the people outside the ropes who take things too far. And in 2015, Sergio Garcia got the full blast. At the Players' Championship that year, Sergio was already used to being a divisive figure, but what he faced at TPC Sawgrass went well beyond normal heckling. From the first round, fans were on him, booing, heckling, mocking his accent. It was relentless. But things escalated when Garcia found himself in a 3-man playoff with Ricky Fowler and Kevin Kisner. The crowd didn't just pick a favorite, they picked a villain, and they made sure Sergio knew it. Some shouted insults during his backswing, others mocked his heritage, and just when you thought it couldn't get more uncomfortable, the broadcast joined in. NBC's Dan Hicks imitated Sergio's Spanish accent live on air. Another commentator cracked a siesta joke, taking a swing at his age and nationality in the middle of a playoff for one of golf's biggest titles. Garcia didn't lash out, he didn't storm off, he took it, then calmly said afterward, "It was great for the most part. Obviously, some guys there that don't deserve to be here watching golf." Golf prides itself on being a gentleman's game, but at Sawgrass in 2015, the crowd brought none of that energy. Number 6 takes us to the 2023 Ryder Cup in Rome, where one of the most disrespectful moments didn't come from a player, but from someone you don't expect at all. It was late on Saturday. The US team needed a spark, and Patrick Cantlay delivered one. He drained a massive 43-foot birdie on the final hole. The crowd, which had been riding him all day over the whole Hatgate saga, fell silent. And on the US side, pure celebration. But then things got really weird. Cantlay's caddy, Joe LaCava, took center stage, literally. He started waving his cap at the crowd, mocking the European fans who had taunted them all day. That part? Fine. Heated crowds, fired up celebrations. It's Ryder Cup golf. But then LaCava didn't stop. He walked across the green, stood near Rory McIlroy, and stayed there while Rory still had a putt to tie the match. It was a total breach of etiquette. The moment wasn't over, but LaCava acted like it was. Rory politely asked him to move. LaCava didn't. Instead, he fired back with a smirk and a "Relax, Rory," all while standing right in his line. The tension was unreal. Rory stepped up and attempted the putt, but missed. The match slipped away, and so did his patience. After the round, things boiled over. In the parking lot, Rory had to be physically restrained as he shouted across the lot at LaCava, furious over what had just unfolded. Caddy or not, the line had been crossed. There's passion and then there's provocation, and LaCava didn't just step over the line, he danced on it in front of the world. Number 5 isn't just a moment, it's a saga. A rivalry built on eye rolls, shade, and some of the pettiest behavior golf has ever seen. Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau didn't just dislike each other. They practically made a second career out of proving it. It all started with some light jabs in interviews, but things escalated fast. There was that infamous leaked clip, Brooks in a post-round interview, rolling his eyes mid-sentence as Bryson walked by in the background. The stare, the disgust. He literally stopped talking because he couldn't even process DeChambeau's existence in that moment. But then came the Brooksy chants. Fans started yelling, "Let's go Brooksy," every time Bryson teed it up, especially after Koepka subtly encouraged it with a grin and a few strategic Twitter likes. And Bryson? He snapped. He started ejecting fans mid-round for calling him Brooksy. But Koepka, he kept stoking the fire on social media like a guy throwing gas on a grill. What followed was pure chaos. Snide comments, passive-aggressive interviews, even fake thank you videos from Koepka aimed at fans who got kicked out for trolling Bryson. It got so out of hand that the PGA Tour had to step in and literally broker a truce, like they were babysitting 2 teenagers at golf camp. And number 4 takes us to Shinnecock Hills during the 2018 US Open, where one of the most respected names in golf did something that made jaws drop around the world. Phil was having a nightmare of a round. The greens were baked, the setup was brutal, and patience was wearing thin. On the 13th hole, he faced a slick downhill putt. He missed it, and then watched in frustration as the ball kept rolling further away from the hole. But what happened next wasn't just shocking, it was a blatant break from golf's code of conduct. Instead of letting the ball stop, Phil chased it down and smacked it while it was still moving. Right there on the green, in the middle of the US Open. It wasn't a mistake, it wasn't confusion, it was deliberate. He later admitted he did it on purpose to avoid an even worse score. And yes, the rulebook handed him a 2-stroke penalty instead of a disqualification. But the reaction? Pure outrage. Fans booed, commentators were stunned, and fellow pros called it disrespectful. Not just to the tournament, but to the game itself. Because this wasn't gamesmanship, it was damage control wrapped in defiance. And in a sport that lives and breathes integrity, Phil's move felt like a giant middle finger to the very idea of sportsmanship. Sliding into the top 3 of the most unsportsmanlike moments ever recorded in golf, it looked like a storybook ending until it turned into a total circus. Justin Leonard had just drained an outrageous 45-foot bomb, arguably the biggest putt of his life, and instantly, the American bench erupted like they'd just won the Super Bowl. Teammates, caddies, coaches, wives, even moms charged the green like it was the 18th at Augusta on a Sunday. There was only one problem. The match wasn't over, not even close. Standing silently amid the chaos was Jose Maria Olazabal. He still had a 25-foot putt to tie the hole, to keep Europe's hope alive. But instead of quiet and concentration, he got muddy footprints, high fives, and deafening roars. It took minutes, actual minutes, for the green to clear, and when it finally did, Olazabal missed. Later, he called it a very ugly picture. European captain Sam Torrance didn't hold back either. The most disgusting thing I've ever seen in golf. And the Americans, even Ben Crenshaw, admitted, it really was not something that we need to be proud of. No handshake, no respect, just a premature party, and one of the worst displays of sportsmanship the Ryder Cup has ever seen. Number 2 takes us back to 2003. When Annika Sorenstam did something no woman had done in nearly 6 decades. She teed it up in a PGA Tour event. The Colonial in Fort Worth became the center of the golf universe that week. Media swarmed, fans packed the course, and while most players either supported her or stayed quiet, one voice cut through the noise. And not in a good way. Vijay Singh, a major champion and one of the top players in the world at the time, didn't just object, he made it personal. When asked about Annika's appearance in the event, he said, "I hope she misses the cut. She doesn't belong out here." That wasn't just an opinion, that was a public hit on a player doing something historic for the game. Annika had earned her spot. She didn't ask for special treatment. She wanted to challenge herself against the best, and she handled the pressure, the noise, and the scrutiny with nothing but class. She shot 71-74, missed the cut by 4 shots, and walked away with her head held high. And Vijay? He didn't even play that week. He pulled out before the tournament started, after making one of the most condescending statements in modern golf history. And whether it was because he didn't want to face the media, the fans, or Annika herself, one thing was clear. His words weren't just disrespectful, his absence made them louder. And finally, the big number 1. You expect tempers to flare in golf. A slammed club here, a muttered curse there, it happens. But Sergio Garcia didn't just lose his cool. He crossed a line that made people wonder if he even respected the game at all. Let's rewind to 2007 at the WGCCA Championship. Garcia missed a putt he didn't like, but instead of moving on or shaking it off, he leaned over the hole and spit directly into the cup. Right there. On live TV, in front of fans, in front of his fellow competitors. It wasn't just gross, it was flat-out disrespectful to the players who still had to play on that green. The backlash was instant. Commentators, players, and fans slammed him for the move. Sergio later apologized, but the damage was done. And unfortunately, it wouldn't be the last time. Fast forward to 2019 at the Saudi International, where Garcia was having another rough week. After a frustrating hole, he took out his anger not on a club or a ball, but on the greens themselves. Yes, plural. He intentionally scuffed up multiple putting surfaces in a fit of rage, dragging his feet and gouging the turf like he was trying to leave a message. Other players were furious. Tour officials disqualified him. The first DQ on the European Tour for misconduct in years. 2 separate incidents, 2 moments of frustration, and 1 man with 0 sportsmanship in his body. Oh, and now that you're still with us, we have another great golf video for you to watch, right in the middle of the screen. Enjoy.